Good afternoon, guys. Today we're going to discuss with you the feudal system. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mrs. Mold, and please give her your undivided attention by getting out a sheet of paper so that you can go ahead and take some amazing notes. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get started.
All right. So if you already know the story of Robin Hood, you're already somewhat prepared for today's lesson about the feudal system. So we know that Robin Hood liked to steal from the rich and give to the poor. But who were the rich people?
So wait, you're talking about the fox in that Disney movie?
Yes, that guy.
Okay, so go ahead, raise your hand if you've seen that movie. You just raised your hand. I saw you do it. I promise you, you did it. So, all right, so the fox that's in that Disney movie, what's it called?
Robin Hood.
Oh, okay,
And that
okay.
nasty lion who's the king.
Right, and what's his name?
Sir Little John, or he wants to call himself king.
Right.
Little John.
Yep, okay,
Or no,
all right.
I'm sorry, that's his sidekick. I can't even remember. What's his name?
Well, the king is King Richard.
That's right. I can't remember the name of the lion that's his brother that wants to be the king. But he's... I can't remember.
All right, here's the deal. We're struggling coming up with this guy's name, but you can Google it and bring it to class, and that'll be your point for knowing, hey, you watched this video and you had a great time doing it. So please come to class with the name of the character that is the lion, or the like lion that wants to be king. So, you know, he just wants to be king. That's Lion King. All right. Anyways, the other lion from Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood, that he wants to be king. He's the bad guy. That's right. And he always sucks his thumb. So, and he says, "Mother." So, make sure bring that to class. That tells me that you watched the video. Awesome. Got it. All right. Let's keep going.
So anyway, if you already know a little bit about Robin Hood, if you've seen that movie, you're somewhat familiar with the feudal system that was the main form of government during that time, during the Middle Ages. So, what we need to know about the feudal system is that there were different separations as far as different people groups, different groups that people were separated into socially. So what I want you to do is draw a pyramid with me and separate it into 4 different sections. At the very top was the king. He was the ultimate ruler. He owned all the land, but he needed somebody to take care of that land for him and to manage it. So underneath the king were the barons.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Absolutely.
All right. Now, guys, just so you know, this guy right here, the king, the person that determined who would be king, because at this time, it was just kind of like grab your land. Nobody was really in control. You didn't have a president or ruler over a particular territory. You had people who decided that they were going to be kings, but you know who they said that actually decided who was going to be king? God. It's called the divine right of kings. It is their divine right to be king. God said this particular person was going to be king. And because religion is influencing their the feudal system so much, if you are in any class that's lower than the king, you're not going to go against God. If God said that this person's going to be king, by golly, they're king. And God obviously wasn't telling you that you're king, so we're going to listen to this person because God said this person's king. Okay.
So, thank you, Mr. Jones,
Yep.
for that clarification.
Yep.
So the barons, they were underneath the king, and they held different chunks of land, and they took care of it for the king. They also would pledge loyalty to the king, and the soldiers that would live on that land. There was different people that would live on the land that the baron managed, and those soldiers would fight for the king. Okay, so the people below the barons were the lords.
So wait,
Or knights.
lords, God. Different lord?
Yes, different lord, definitely. So lords was a kind of a different name for knights. Those names were similar. Okay, so in other words, these were the soldiers that would fight for the baron and ultimately for the king. So the lords or the knights managed these different estates that was on the land that the barons also managed. Okay, so a lord or knight's estate was kind of the center of a village. And in the village were the peasants or serfs. Okay, so the peasants or the serfs were kind of the very bottom of the pyramid, obviously at the bottom, and the largest amount of people in the population belonged to this group. They had a difficult life. They worked long hours. They did not live in the best conditions. They had jobs such as farming, blacksmithing, they were bakers, and they had other jobs and did other services that provided for the village. So serfs were similar to slaves, and they worked directly for the lord or the knight in their household, and they had to pledge their lives in service for the lord or the knight. So now that you know a little bit more about the European feudal system, you can see how the legendary Robin Hood was a nuisance to the lords and the barons because he was stealing their money and giving it to the peasants or the serfs and trying to make their lives better. But he was somewhat of a hero to the peasants or the serfs because he was trying to help them and give them those the money and the possessions that they didn't have. So whether or not Robin Hood was a real person, we probably will never know, but you can better understand the time in which he may have lived.
So we have these guys work for this guy. These guys protect these guys, but these guys also are kind of in the service of this guy. So when we look at this, it just kind of, even if we did like a circle, check this out. Everything inside of the circle belongs to the king. Everything. You have barons who control this area, and this area, and this area. And no, I'm not drawing a face. No, you see that. But then you have the lords who are controlling this area here, and this area. And there may be multiple lords who are controlling territories, because knights were given land as part of their service. Like, hey, thanks so much for protecting me. I'm going to give you this plot of land, and so you're gonna serve me. All right. So then you have the peasants. These peasants, they don't own land, but you have peasants here, all through here, full of peasants and serfs who are working this land all over the place. Okay? So this kind of shows you how everybody's connected, because these guys work for this guy who works for this guy who works for this guy. They're all working together. It's all part of one system. And if you think about this in terms of school,
That's a really good illustration. Did you just come up with that just now?
what, school?
No,
Oh,
that
this?
circle, because that's pretty cool.
I did, because I'm that good. All right. So when we look at this, who do you think would be at the top? Probably Mrs. Sutherland. So we'll write in Mrs. Sutherland. Now, how many Mrs. Sutherlands do we have? One, right? We have one. Now, Usually then you have some sort of like administrative staff. These are people who kind of, Mrs. Sutherland is considered our superintendent. We have administrative staff that kind of oversees the workings of the school. So we've got Mrs. Gorman, we have Mrs. Gooseman, so we'll put Gorman and Gooseman. Now, from there, we have other people who are going to be the teachers. Those are kind of like our knights. We are here, believe me, we will protect you if anything happens. So you have teachers. Then down here, we have a lot more students than we do teachers. So you'll see how the largest group of people is down at the bottom. So we have students down here. So you have more students than you have teachers. You have more teachers than you have administrative staff. And then you have more administrative staff than you do superintendents. But everybody is working for that one person. We all, I don't want to say we serve Mrs. Sutherland, but we want to do the best job that we can do, really to make her happy and to do what's best for everyone. So you see how this same system right here, whoop, this feudal system has transferred over even into our own lives, in the way in which our country is structured, the way that businesses are structured. You have one CEO. This is huge for you to understand when you come into class tomorrow. All right? Anything else you want to add?
Hey, you said it just fine.
All right.
I think we got it.
All right. Take care, guys.